Hello, and welcome back to day 4, the last day of my virtual book tour. And I just want to take this moment to say thank you with all my heart for being with me on this journey of these last 4 days on my virtual book tour. I'm so grateful that you walked this journey with me. And I pray that you have been blessed in some way, have received information, a message from spirit, guidance, something from these last 4 days and me sharing with you my book, Reconciled, and my story. I know that this is a story of me and my journey. And I know you have your own story and your own journey of what you've been through, if you've been divorced and separated, and your healing journey, and if you've been remarried, finding your love again and getting married, and having to learn new way of being when you have a blended family, because it's all a learning. And I'm grateful for the blessed opportunity to share my experience with you and my learning journey and my awakening and my life journey. And it's never stops. It continues. I wrote the book 10 years ago, published it 5 years ago, and it's still a journey. Now I'm a grandmother of 4 grandchildren now, and my children are grown and have their own relationships. And so I'm at a whole different place and in a whole different learning, being in a blended family, and I love it. It's always an opportunity for me to grow my relationships, learn about myself, learn about other people, especially the people that I love. And so I'm grateful to be able to share that with you. So day 4 today, the last day, the theme for today is reconciliation and restoration. And my guest speaker today that I actually did an interview with, and you'll see her on the page, on this page, one of my readers, Dr. Sonia Milan from Australia. She said a lot of great things. She has her different thoughts that she shared in my interview with her. And again, you can look on the link and just click and watch that interview. But she had lots of different thoughts. And, one of the things that she talks about is emotional divorce, and how sometimes we get remarried and we still haven't emotionally divorced from the first marriage. And so that's, still a healing process for us that sometimes we still work through, and it takes time to do that. And sometimes we don't know how to emotionally divorce from the first husband or the first wife. And the big piece with that is forgiveness. And I talked about that in the day 1 of my virtual book tour. Forgiveness is a huge piece, and mainly the forgiveness of yourself, forgiving yourself of those judgments that you've placed on the situation, that you've placed on yourself, that you've judged your husband or your wife. It's about letting all that emotional pain, hurt, sorrow, let it go. And also Dr. Sonia, I like to call her Dr. Sonia. She also talks about how spirituality really does heal relationships. And she's done a lot of research on how spirituality and religion actually do help us heal relationships. And so I really encourage you to go and watch that interview with Dr. Sonia Milan from Australia. I love her accent. And also today, day 4, I'll be bebopping over to South Carolina with my dear friend Lori Sims with Nacho Kids Facebook live group. And that's at noon Mountain Standard Time. So don't miss that. That's going to be great. I just love Lori. We have such good laughs And I love her Southern accent. She's got that Southern love and heart and hospitality too. So remember to go and click on that link too. That's great. And that's a live one. And the recording will be hopefully available later on during after the tour. I'll be able to post it on YouTube or something, a link to it. So watch for that if you didn't get a chance to watch the interview with Lori from Nacho Kids. So today I have something special. So I've given you chapter 6, 7, and 8, and we've talked about chapter 6, 7, and 8 over the last 3 days. Today, I'm going to talk to you. I'm going to read a chapter from my book, from chapter 21, something different. Chapter 21 is forgiveness and healing with children. And this is really a great piece because I mentioned this in one of the other days of the virtual book tour. We talk about reconciliation with, our former spouse or, a parent or a friend or even a current spouse, but we don't really talk about reconciliation with our children, and specifically adult children, because reconciliation is both ways. It's us asking forgiveness and them giving forgiveness, and in that exchange of giving and receiving, there's a beautiful healing piece that takes place. And I actually talk about that in my book about my reconciliation with my husband. So you'll have to get the book to read that part of it. But I would like to share with you my reconciliation piece with my children. And so so I have to start with my quote. The quote is, "Be kind and compassionate to one another, forgiving each other just as Christ God forgave you," Ephesians 4:32. And so this is on page 272. Reconciling with my children. One Sunday, our pastor's message was about forgiveness. He talked about giving the gift of forgiveness to someone at whom you might still be angry, and about forgiving yourself. At first, I didn't think I still needed to forgive anyone. Then it occurred to me that I still needed to ask my son and daughter for their forgiveness face to face in order for deeper healing to begin. I then heard Spirit tell my heart that I also had to ask for the husband's forgiveness in person. The theme for this year really is the gift of forgiveness, I thought to myself. I decided that I would talk to the kids when they were visiting us at Christmas, but how was I going to talk to their dad face to face? I decided that if it was in the highest good for us to reconcile this way, God would bring us together. My husband and I, along with our very excited 3-year-old preschooler, picked up my son and daughter from the airport and got them settled. Our basement apartment was small, but having all of us together was warm and homey. Little guy loved waking up to his big brother and sister there and going sightseeing with them. One day, I managed to be alone with my son and daughter for the private time I had planned to have with them. I prayed that night for the right words, when to say them and when to be quiet and just listen. They sat on the couch and I made myself comfortable on the floor facing them, and I began. I've talked to you each individually about the divorce and what happened between your dad and me. Looking at my daughter, I said, it was the weekend of your graduation. And looking at my son, I said, it was just recently, but on the phone. They both nodded. But I never really acknowledged face to face the pain you both went through after the divorce. I could see their faces soften. I know it was hard for both of you. I was so consumed by my own hurt and suffering that I was blind to what you were feeling. I'm so sorry for not seeing your pain and for not being there to help you. I hope that you will find in your hearts to forgive me someday. My daughter had visible tears, and my son's eyes were moist. They spoke simultaneously as if they knew what the other was going to say, as they often did, and told me it was okay and they understood. My voice was choked up as I continue. I also want to acknowledge the hurt I caused you when I moved to Colorado. I know you felt abandoned, and I know you felt I abandoned you. And the truth is, I did. You were right. I behaved selfishly. I wasn't thinking of either of you in that decision. I only thought of myself and my new life. I know it hurt you terribly, and it was difficult for you not to have me in your life. I hope you'll both find it in your hearts to forgive me one day, maybe not right away, for abandoning you, causing you so much pain. By this time, all three of us were crying as they told me they forgave me. I could sense the Spirit working in us. Through my tears, I said, I can't go back and change the past, but I can do something right now. I wish with all my heart to be back in your lives again from this day forward. I was overjoyed when they happily agreed and invited me back into their lives, along with a group hug and shared kisses. With mercy and love, God had fully reconciled me to my children and restored our relationships. Now I was responsible for rebuilding with each of them. Maybe you're currently mending a broken or wounded relationship, or perhaps someone you love is working towards reconciling with you. I've learned through reconciling with my children that had they still been angry and bitter with me, we would not have been reconciled that day. Reconciliation takes all parties to be willing to fully forgive. I had been mending my relationship with my children little by little over the years until they were in a place to be able to forgive me, which I'm so grateful for today. Saying goodbye when my son and daughter had to leave was difficult. They went back home to Las Vegas. I felt like I was reliving the days when they would go back and forth to their dad. My three children and I had finally had a big family hug in the basement apartment before leaving for the airport, and we all shed tears, even little brother. The hard part about saying goodbye was the prospect of not being with them again for a while. I was grateful, however, even in my sadness, that my grown-up children and I were connected once again. That was a really special moment, a special time. We reconciled before I had reconciled with my husband in the book. And like I said before, if I hadn't mended, continuing to little piece by little piece mend my relationship with my children, that the reconciliation probably wouldn't have taken place. So, it's those little steps of reaching out and acknowledging and building the relationship before the reconciliation piece comes in. And both parties have to be willing to want to reconcile. And then, there's the restoration. And so that was, oh my goodness, that was what, 12, 15 years ago. And when I said that I was my responsibility to continue to build that relationship from that day forward to today, I have been consistently building my relationship with my children, reaching out, being in contact. And even though they're in Las Vegas and I'm in Colorado, I make effort to make sure that I call them or FaceTime with them, talk to them on the phone, text them, little things, little communications. And now I have my wonderful, my blessed grandchildren that I am now working with and building those relationships with. Relationships are so special, so sacred. At least I feel that way anyways. I didn't see that back when I was in pain and hurting in my own suffering. I couldn't see it then. It was after I was able to get out of the pain and the suffering that I was able to see their suffering and see what they were going through and see from their eyes and the back and forth that they struggled and the hard times that they saw their dad and I go through. And it's about acknowledging that pain, that you understand that you know that they were feeling that. And that's really important in a relationship, is to be able to acknowledge and be able to be in a place to listen and understand them. And so I hope that this piece of my from my book Reconciled has helped you a little bit more understanding of what reconciliation is, what it looks like, feels like, and then the restoration of that relationship with them. And again, you know, there's so many great pieces in the book. Not only did I reconcile with my children, I reconciled with my husband, and there's even a beautiful piece in there where I had someone, an old friend, reach out to me and want to reconcile with me in that. So I was able to be on the other end of reconciliation. And that's a beautiful feeling too. So once again, thank you so much for joining me today on day 4 of my virtual book tour. And it's not over yet. I will be having a drawing for an autographed copy of my book Reconciled. Yay! Probably later today. But if you do get a chance, jump over to South Carolina and join Lori Sims and I and Nacho Kids podcast, or not podcast, Nacho Kids Facebook group to hear our interview over there. And stay tuned. Tomorrow is the Saturday, and I have a Reconciled book bundle with lots of great gifts in there, lots of goodies in the bundle on self-love and self-care nurturing practices. And it also includes my book, a copy of my book, Reconciled. So stay tuned for that for tomorrow, and look for a YouTube video on who won the Reconciled copy, autographed copy from me. And thank you again so much for joining me, and blessings, 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 and love and light to you and your family. And I look forward to hearing from you. Please reply to this email. I want your feedback. Tell me, what did you think about my book Reconcile, the 3 chapters that that you read, and this chapter today? You know, what was your experience of the interviews that I had with the podcast and then the Facebook lives, and what, like, how did you, what came up for you when I interviewed readers that had already read my book and their insights of the book? I really would love to hear from you. All you have to do is just click reply to this email and let me know. And I look forward to connecting with you again soon. So stay tuned for your inbox tomorrow. Blessings to you, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye for now.